So let's start it. The story of Papo and Yo. So many people ask me, how did you manage to make that game? Where did you find the money? How were you able to do that? And here's the story. So everything started like 3 years ago. I was at Electronic Arts. Let me start here drawing. Yes. And here's my wife, Aranza. Here's my boy, Ugi. And this is my dog, Flia. So 3 years ago, this is me. 3 years ago, I was making AAA games. I was a creative director at Electronic Arts. And I was 35 years old, and you may think that I have the perfect life. I have a beautiful family. I had a really good paying job. I have a lot of power. I travel alone. I have a lot of development influence at Electronic Arts. So what I was wrong there is I was not happy at all inside. And the reason I was not happy at all is because I didn't like to do shooters or do meaningless games. As much as I tried to change them, I changed them as much as I could, but the change was minimal. And then I just couldn't understand that concept that when I was a kid, I go to school and you ask people what an AK-47 is, and no one knew in my times. Now you go to school today and you ask any kid, do you know what an AK-47 is? People want to tell, yes. So it is, we're teaching all this terrible knowledge to people today on weapons and warfare, so I was not happy at all. So then luckily I met a friend of mine. She was doing her master's, and her professor told her, like, in order to do this master's and to get to the end, you have to know your I. It is, what is your I? What do you do what you do? And I went like, well, I'm going to apply that to me and say, maybe it's going to help me my depression. And then say, why do I do what I do? And then I went really back into my memories, and I remember when I was a kid and I was playing Mario. And then I remember playing for hours and hours and hours and hours, and I played until my thumb hurt to defeat Vander, and then I stopped playing, and then I encountered my reality. My father was an alcoholic. And I go like, okay, thank you, Mario, for helping me here to survive until this point, but fuck you because I'm back in my reality. So what I said, so what I really want to do is I want to create games for that hurt kid that I was. I wanted to do games that actually help the people go to struggles, like a good movie do, or like a good book do that for you. But video games, we don't do that, so I want to do games for struggling people. Struggling, okay. My spelling sucks, sorry. So at the same time, I have to be responsible to my family. So this is my wife. She was doing her PhD at the time, so I have to support the family. PhD student doesn't get paid too much. And then I have 150K in my bank account. So, okay, 150K. I want to do games to help people that are in struggle. What am I going to do? And then I start thinking, okay, if I go there by myself, I'm going to do a side-scroller game. Maybe I join with a programmer friend, and maybe we can do an indie game. And then I start thinking, no, that's not what I want to do. What I want to do is to actually challenge these AAA games, because that's what I knew how to do. I wanted to do an indie game that can go head-to-head with the big ones. And then I said, oh, how am I going to do that? And so I'm going to start thinking, this problem has been solved somewhere else. So I went to the movies. So here are two movies. And on the left side, we have no, on the right side over there, we have a movie with Sylvester Stallone and Schwarzenegger, the one, Expendables. Really terrible movie. It was a studio movie. And then on the side, you have an indie movie. Anyone know which one is it? The Hurt Locker. The Hurt Locker. So what it was really cool about these two movies is that they are from the topic of war, and they're from two completely different angles. These guys do it from the heroism side. I'm going to go there, I'm going to save my country, I'm going to be there for my buddies. And in the other side, it was like, why will a human being go to disarm bombs in Afghanistan or Iraq? And then you go deep inside into the human struggle. What does this guy do that? And I found that movie so beautiful and so insightful of what is to be in a war. So then I compared the two movies and I did this little exercise. So I compared the movies in terms of budget, then in terms of box office, and in terms of Oscars. So the first one, The Expendables, the first one cost $80 million, and then it makes $280 million. The Hard Locker costs $15 million, and it makes $50 million. So if you go back and you compare the two movies, this one makes 3.4 times their investment, and this one makes the investment 3.3 times. I say, that's a business model. I can do that. So I job myself to do that. I've seen that independent games has to fight with the big ones. Independence is about affronting the topics that the big studios cannot affront because most of them, they're public companies. So someone has to do it, and we independent, we have to do that. And in terms of recognition, this guy got 0 Oscars here. This guy got 6. So suddenly, right away, you see, okay, in the movie business is working. The independent is a business. Right now, we have to do the indie side of game a business. And a business means that it's not a few ones make it and many die. It's about having a healthy community around it. So that was a challenge that I set myself to do. Prove that that can work. So what I did, it was, this is Montreal, so Ubisoft is bigger than EA over there. Okay, and now the studio is dead, so don't count it. So I say, okay, I'm going to leave to my home office, and the moment I left EA, I start thinking, okay, I'm going to make a game about my alcoholic father. Good, and then say, okay, to do that, I'm going to need money. And then it is, and then what happens if I get the money is the question. Okay, so if I'm able to collect the money to do a mini AAA, what I'm going to do? So what I'll be doing is I'll be developing a studio where I'll bring my friends and crazy ones, anyone who I can convince to join. Then we will develop games. Then we will need to market them, and we need to publish them. Then we need to pay people. Then we need to manage our cash flow. Then we need to do some business debt, because what happens if the game doesn't work? So we end the game and we'll need to fire everyone. That wouldn't work. Then we need to have HR and some retention plan, because there's a lot of cool projects in Montreal that you can work on. So you have to solve that problem too. And then you have to get a lot of legal advice not to do a stupid mistake that can bring your company down. So it sounds really complicated, but in fact, it is not. Many people, many independents see the business side as something scary. But every time that I see a big problem, I think of solving what we'll do if it was a game. So I remember one animator coming to me one day and say, hey, guy, hey, man, why don't you play with us Minecraft? And I say, I don't have time. You are my Minecraft. So I started, so you imagine that your company is an RTS. So people, they are your troops. Then the development is how you fight the war with time. Then marketing and publishing is a bit like a Little Big Planet. I couldn't find an RTS. So in Little Big Planet, if you go there, you make your level and you put it out, and you don't put, even if you create the most amazing level, if you don't name it correctly, no one will open it. If you don't know the members in the community who's going to play your level and promote it, no one's going to know that your level exists. So then paying people and managing your cash flow is managing your wood sources. Business development is your next enemy. HR is your barracks. And legal is the walls that you build around your company to keep it safe. And then after you do all that, you hope to put a game out, put it in the cloud. People will get there, they'll buy your game, and you'll pay back your investors. That's what it is, doing independent games. So I'm going to show you, so I wanted to show you all the business side, and now I'm going to show you the first trailer that we did, and then we get into what is emotional games. So this is the first trailer that we did for Papo. And the way this trailer, we did it for the first E3, and then we have a friend of ours doing the animation. It was a friend of a friend who did the animation in Quebec City. For the There's no audio. Nothing.
This is his robot.
Okay, here we go.
Welcome to the adventures of Kiko. He lives in a favela. This is his robot, Lula. Most people think Lula's just a toy, but Kiko knows the truth. This is Monster. He's real too. And Lula doesn't trust the monster. Because of one thing. The monster's addicted to frogs. And when he eats them, he changes. Kiko's best friend becomes his deadly enemy. And Kiko's only hope to survive is to somehow find a cure.
Good, so in order to make stuff like this, you need money and you need to find it. So let's start. So when you get out of a big company, you are 100% risk. No one will like to give you money. So, but there's different sources of money out there. So there's like you can go for partners, you can go for publisher money, you can go for government money, you can go for a bank loan. Do not recommend this one. Angel investors, venture capitalists. So there's different ways to find money. And there's one thing that someone taught me that it was really interesting. It is brain needs money, money needs brain. You're not begging, they need you. So in order to access that money, there's two ways you can go by it. So you can create a business plan, or you can do a product pitch. I suck at business plan. So I couldn't go that road. So I know, okay, I want to do a product pitch. So, okay, I'm really good doing product pitches. That's what I learned at EA. And I remember one story that I had at EA that it was really cool. I don't know if it's true. I tried to find it on the internet, and I can't prove that it's real. But it was a guy in the 60s. This guy over here, he wanted to create Busch Gardens, the modern zoo, like animals. And at the time, Mickey Mouse was really popular. Everyone wanted roller coaster rides. So the guy was pitching, look, to the investors, these guys over here, telling them, hey, modern zoos are really cool. Animals are really cool. I want to make the modern zoo. And he tried for years and years, and he never get traction on his business. So what happened, he said, I'm doing something wrong with the pitch. So what he did one day was the following. Oh, wait, sorry, one. I'm a bit nervous, I'm not drawing really well, sorry, but that's a tiger. So what the guy did, he brought a tiger in front of the table. And when you're 30 centimeters away from a real-life tiger, you say, wow, that thing is amazing. So then what I learned there from the story, it is that you have to put the tiger on the table if you want to find money. So then I needed to prove this one. So what was the best way for me to put a tiger on the table? It was okay to create a prototype. I'm really good at creating prototypes. But the problem that I had was that my tiger was my alcoholic father, and he was a bit aggressive. So I couldn't, imagine me going to a meeting room full of investors telling them, hey, I want to make a game about my alcoholic father. They will have freak out. So what I did is this one. I work a lot on the metaphor. And in North America, especially, you have to be really good at doing metaphors. Otherwise, you won't get no money. So I'm going to give you an example of how metaphors work in American society. So, okay, I deal with my alcoholic father. Okay, this is the story of a kid who has been abandoned by his father at an early age. And his father is a real asshole. And when he grows up, he gets to meet him and get close to him, and his father tells him, the only way you can get close to me is by becoming like me. And the abandoned kid will ever do that because that's where his pain comes from. Say, look, I'm your father. So what I did is that I got rid of my alcoholic father, and I created a pink monster, and he was addicted to frogs. So my frog there. And then this is a game about a boy named Kiko and his best friend Monster. Monster is addicted to frogs. So every time he hits a frog, he goes crazy and starts attacking everyone. Your goal in the game is to find a cure for your monster. Boom. So when I had the metaphor, I worked on my prototype. And this is the first prototype I did for Papo and Yo. This is the prototype that I showed to Sonny to get the pop fund. I did this prototype. It took me 3 months. A friend of mine gave me the model, and the rest of the stuff I downloaded from the internet. There's no audio. And it was really funny because I remember Dumbo, and that's what inspired me to do that one. So we have the monster becoming afraid of the robot, but then we caught that one in the funnel again. And I could also climb on the monster. Let me see if I'm doing it there. Yes. So I wanted to do Shadow of the Colossus too, but then we had to cut it out because we didn't have the budget to do it right. And then I'm gonna bring you to when you discover the frogs. Right here. So the frog is there. So right away you can feel the emotional resonance of the game just by going back and forward from this happy music to this really dark music. And then that was my tiger. And that's what got me to get the money to do Papo. Now, let's go into... Okay, so what I did with that prototype, I went to look for partners. And then with that prototype, when I showed it to my partners, my potential partners, I got their heart. They love the prototype, they love the story. So at the same time, I got their wallet because they wanted to invest in the game. And I got their brains because they wanted to make the game with me. So, and after that one, we went to the publishing, and then we go to the CMF. CMF is the Canadian Media Fund. And this is a fund in Canada that comes from independent movie making. So what happens in Canada, there was this fund to help independent movie makers, and now they moved that fund, also a part of that fund, to do independent games. And one of my partners who comes from the movies, he told me, look, the financing of independent games have to completely change if you guys want to do something cool. And one thing that we do in movies is to get good budgets, is to get something like the Hard Locker or Papo, is that they go getting a bit from government grants, a bit from publishers, a bit from investors. And when you go there and you collect a bit of money from all around, your mother, your father, whatever, then you reduce the risk. And at the same time, you get a lot of creative power because no one will put a finger on what you're creating. The problem is when you're getting a lot of money from someone, he's going to get really nervous. And he, want it or not, they're going to put their finger on what you're creating. And that is really, really dangerous. So that's the reason independent movies can go so deep on that one, because of the creative control that creators have, because they leverage different ways of financing their games. Now, let's go to emotional games. I want to talk to you guys about business because I think that's what we're missing today in the independent industry. There's a lot of business education that we need to get in order to make this type of games. Now, about making emotional games, right away the discussion turns around about emotions that you can do in games and the emotions that you can do in movies. So games are really good at doing fear. So I remember I could play Resident Evil until the version 5. When it came out on the Xbox, I was so afraid I couldn't play it anymore. I could watch the Human Centipede 3 times, but not Resident Evil. And another thing that we do really good is ecstasy. So driving like 120 kilometers an hour through a city is so amazing that that sensation can only be given by games like Need for Speed. Even the Fast and the Furious movies suck. And then other emotion that we do really well is rage. We're really good at destroying everything. Give me a gun, I'm going to take all my anger I have for the world and not care about everyone. What happened in the movie said that the emotions that they do really well is love and grief. Grief, something like that. So there's something that you need to have to experience love and grief is empathy. And we suck doing empathy in games. In fact, what we've been doing for the past 25 years is pushing the boundaries toward destroying empathy. And every major AAA title is about that. It's not about empathy at all. So it's really hard to achieve love and grief when you have to kill 300 people. in your way. So some people say, yes, I have emotional experience in games. And I agree with them. But there's a problem with that assessment, is that this is what happens in games today. We give you a gameplay sequence that brings you into a cinematic, and then, depending on the complexity of the game, you branch out, and then you go like this, something like that. And what is the role of these sequences? The role of these sequences is to increase role-playing. That's what they do. Every emotional relation that puts you toward empathy happens in a cinematic. It doesn't happen interactively. And what happens when we do that is the following. It is role-playing is cool. So this is a download from the internet. It's a bullshit picture because you will never play paintball without the proper equipment. But what I like about this picture is that you see a couple, you see that they love each other, they go play war, and they get out of it. But that is nothing related to war in reality. What is more important about emotion is sometimes what you leave behind. And this is reality. And suddenly games looks like the guys playing paintball, while reality is what is happening on the right. And video games, we have to go, as indie developers, we have to bring and affront the topics that video games from studios cannot do. Video games from studios will never go here. Forget about it. Independence, we can do it, and we should go there. So, when I was in my 20s, I was really into independent cinema, and there was Andrei Tarkovsky, a cinematographer, a Russian cinematographer, and he said something really interesting that stuck in my head. He said, the biggest problem with humans, the biggest human tragedy is our incapacity to transmit experiences. Yes, we write books, we make movies, but then this person have to do their own interpretation of what that is. But the innovation that we're living today as a society is the invention of simulations. With simulations, a guy like me can go there and create the context of what happened to me and make other people experience it and connect to it. So this quote came from Ivan Narcissus when we launched Papo. When video games become playable memoirs, people will look back at Papo and Yo as an important step in that direction. And when I read that quote, I was like, fuck, I did it. Yes. I was blown by it, I couldn't say it. And then yesterday talk from Vander about telling his story. And thank you very much for opening and sharing the story. Prove it again. I was connected to him in this weird world, and I was like, I cannot believe that when you create this experience, you can connect to people like that. So then, I think that one of the problems that we have today is that we don't take our role as designers. We're not designers, we're storytellers. We're storytellers with a new medium called simulations. And our role is to pick stories to go help people cope with life, give them a different perspective, help them. That's what we do. We're not designers. I come from industrial design, and it's completely different to designing a chair, have a purpose of someone sitting on top, than what is the purpose of designing a game? It's pretty hard to define the purpose of designing a game. And I think we are not taking our role seriously. And then it's impossible that you stay on a, look, if you're in a AAA company and you have a family, how can you make games about killing hundreds of people and feel comfortable with what you're doing? I find that to be terrible. So if you're in a AAA company, please leave. So this is a video that Chris Parson, is he in the Is here now? Okay. You will understand what I ask after I show you this video. So he made this video that is a resume of what Papo and Yo is.
Playing Papo and Yo forced me to ask myself some difficult questions about why I play games. Do I play to escape the world I live in, or do I play to face my past? To carve out a virtual space, a safe space, where I'm allowed to slay my inner demons? It may make you ask similar questions. That's why it's one of the most important games to come out this whole year. Papo and Yo begins with the following dedication. To my mother, brothers, and sisters, with whom I survived the monster and my father. Vander Caballero. Caballero is Papo and Yo's lead designer. He's also a survivor of an abusive alcoholic father, and the game is a way for him to explore the abuse they had to deal with growing up. In the game, you play as Kiko, a child attempting to escape his abusive home life by creating a magical realist fantasy. In the favelas of Kiko's imagination, he is no longer a trapped, powerless child. He can lift buildings, move blocks, and explore. He even has a robot companion that helps him fly and turn switches. Everything is magical and wonderful, until you meet Monster. Monster is a giant, lumbering, pink ogre. He is fat and lazy, yet oddly charming in his own way. There are times when you even grow fond of him. But then Monster will get angry and violent, chase after Kiko, throw him around and make him feel weak and helpless. It's up to him to overcome Monster, to maneuver around his fits of rage, and eventually find a shaman that'll help him overcome his inner demons. That the game is a puzzle platformer makes sense given the subject material. Games like Portal, Ico, and Psychonauts have all flourished in the genre, because the focus on non-violent problem-solving allows players to work through nuanced plots without being forced to kill. Games are often maligned as being escapist, fantasies that we use to distract ourselves and smother the noise of the outside world. Papo and Yo defies that idea. It's a painful, autobiographical story of abuse and redemption, a glorious hero's journey for anyone out there who's ever been molested, raped, or abused. It's adult, touching, and personal in a way I've seen few games ever be, and a benchmark for what I hope they will become. Why do I play games? I play games for moments like this, to be shocked, surprised, and moved. I play games to grow as a human being, to face my own monsters, and if I ever see Vander, I'm going to give him a hug, because he hasn't just made a game, he's made a work of art that's brave, therapeutic, and wonderful. That's why it's important, and that's why you need to play it right now.
I haven't received my hug yet, so. So, in order to make emotional games, you have to break game design rules. All of them, all the ones that we have created in the past 25 years, they have to be erased. They suck. And let me show you why. Character development in video games today is terrible because of this. You start really weak, and then you start acquiring power-ups, you start acquiring weapons, shields, and then you end up something like this at the end of the game. That's right. With a six-pack, of course, and then you end up with a helmet like Robocop, and then, of course, you're going to have a bazooka arm. Something like that. And then I forgot the sniper rifle in the back and some other weapons here. So, so imagine if I go back to my wife and I tell her, the day I'm going to have a bazooka, you will understand what I mean. She's going to slap me in the face. And that's what we do in games today. We teach people that by acquiring all this power, that they're going to solve problems. It's not true at all. In fact, the only way that you can solve problems is by going the completely opposite way. It is like, if you go back to your life experience, you have solved problems when you are at your weakest points, when you're humble. For example, like if I go to my wife and I tell her, look, every time that I come back from work and you recognize the effort that I'm doing for the family, I feel hurt. What I just did there, I just opened myself to her. I say, what you say is really important to me. So, and it's really, really hard to open your heart publicly, but it's something that we need to do with this. We don't have to be afraid of doing it, because if you're afraid of doing it, you're cutting all the life learnings that you have from others. So you have to have a lot of courage to be in front and cry in front of all of you. So, but I'm doing it for the good cause. So let's go back to business. What happened with game development today is that, let's say I'm going to create the average AAA game, and I'm going to start with my shooting mechanics. Okay, I'm going to do some shooting, then I'm going to create a cover system. And then I'm going to do some inventory management, and then I'm going to put some driving. Boom, you're at $50 million now. Okay, now we spend the money on our mechanics. Let's go to create the story. So let's try to make a meaningful story. So we're gonna put here a scene like the guy with his wife and kid. And the goal of this scene it is to create empathy for our hero, showing that he's not a psychopath. And then what happens is that, okay, let's do this interactively. Let's put mechanics here. Do we have the budget to do them? No, we have already spent it here. So, okay, let's put a cinematic. Then we send our hero to, sorry, it's a plane. So then we send our hero to Afghanistan, and in his plane, the goal of this scene is to know who are his friends, who are his enemy, with whom he's going to be in the ground. And then do we have any dialogue type of mechanic like Mass Effect? No, we have already spent our money, so let's put a cinematic. Okay, and finally we put him on the streets of Afghanistan. And this is a possible terrorist, okay? And we put our hero here. And then do we have any interrogation mechanics like L.A. Noire? No. So, okay, so let's use the mechanic we have. Okay, so we have shooting. So he was a terrorist, for sure. And what you do after? You keep going shooting and shooting and shooting until you finish the game. That's what we do today. It's embarrassing. So there's this other myth of the beat chart that you have all done in big companies, and I have done a few of them in my life. And this is the emotional roller coaster that players have to go through the game. And if you're really honest about the beat chart with creating AAA games, that's what you desire, this is what they really look like. You don't get, so you can easily take any AAA, drop your controller, and keep going, and nothing will stay in your head. But something funny happened in Papo and Yo, because we were talking with my partner, Julian Bernoin. So he said to me, hey man, you know what? Papo and Yo is the first game that the beat chart actually works. And I was like, hey, it's true. We actually hit it. And then how did we hit it? What did we do? So one of the rules is to stop breaking the rules, is stop to think mechanics separate from the story. They're the same. There's no difference. And you don't have to plan your mechanics before, because if you do that, then you're already constraining the story and the emotional journey that you have to give to players. So for example, when we started Papo at the beginning, Kiko is in the closet. He get out of the closet and he said, oh, this game is really weird. What is going to happen here? So at that point, we give him a lot of power. So we start playing with the buildings, you start pulling ropes, the environment starts changing, it's all beautiful, and then we grab you there. And then we go to the mechanics of my abusive father. So it's pretty simple. So my father was good when he was not drunk. Then when he took alcohol, he became crazy, and we just have to escape, otherwise we'll get hurt. And then he pass out, he'll throw up, and then we have rotten foods in the game that you have to give to the monster to throw up and come back. And then he came back to be good. That is what I lived in my childhood, and that is what everyone who have experienced an alcoholic or addicted person live through in their life. And then we added more mechanics as we went through. So 3/4 in the game, we thought that we would be finishing the game with a boss fight. If you have a monster, you have a boss fight at the end. And then I couldn't bear myself to do ending the game with a boss fight, because if I did that, I would have betrayed the little children that I was when I was playing Mario. I couldn't do it. So I said, okay, if I want to give closure to people, how will I do it? How can I give closure after such a terrible experience? I'm here today, I'm a father, proud father of 2, and I love my kids, and say, how did I come from abuse to redemption? And it was 10 years of psychoanalytic therapy, a lot of therapy. So I said, okay, what did I do? So first, it is stop the denial. Some people in this situation think, oh, my father only gets drunk 3 times a week, and he's not too aggressive. That's fucked up. You have to, it's crazy. You have to stop. He's an alcoholic. Stop it. Then you have to go through the process of saying, like, no one will save you. No one will save you. You think your mother will save you? You think your brother will help you? No, it doesn't work that way. You have to go out on your own. And in Papo, what we did is we make Kiko get to the altar to find the shaman, and suddenly you get to the altar, to the shaman, and to the altar, and then there's no shaman. And we say, Kiko, there's no cure for monster. And you go like, there's no cure for monster. And in the denial side, here it is when we took Kiko and we put him in the gondola to get to the top of the mountain, that we mutated, you go through the clouds, and then we changed monster for a real father, a real person. It was my father. And then people go like, wow, what the fuck is this game? It's someone's real story. Then we go to the negotiating side of the good and the bad things that the monster did, that my father did. And then what we do, we have a couple of mechanics there that you actually start throwing bottles of whiskey and they transform into frogs, and then you see the action the alcohol have on the monster. And then we have another mechanic that you actually throw in little dolls and they transform into Alejandra, a girl on the other side, and the monster start attacking her. So then in those things, what we wanted to do is make you take distance from the game and say, this is a terrible reality. And finally, we ended up in a scene when the monster is calm, is sleeping, everything is beautiful, and then you had to let go. And this is the most terrible but liberating experience that we have to go as human, letting go people we love. So that's how we created Papo and Yo. So if you want to take something out of this talk, break the game design rules we have created for the past 25 years. They're harmful for our industry. Yeah.
My question, I'm Carolyn Pettit from GameSpot, and your game was hugely important to me. I just want to know if I can give you a hug, because your game really meant so much.
Thanks. Thank you.
Hi, I wanted to say thank you for making such a glorious game. I got it when it first came out. I played it all the way through that night and was completely moved by it. I actually wrote about it a little bit myself. But I want to ask you two questions, and they're much more development-like. One, when you did your prototype, you said you took about 3 months. Was it just you? I know that you had some help with the art, but did you develop the prototype yourself?
Yes, everything.
Okay.
I went back to animating after I stopped animating. I haven't animated for 7 years, and I went back up in 3D Max. How do you put a keyframe?
Excellent. And then my final question is, you were trying to tell your own story, you know, or a story that you felt that needed to be told. Did you focus test and see how the game played with just average Kleenex testers? And then based on that, did you veer from your initial storytelling vision or make any changes based on what people were taking away from the story?
We tested, I think that my biggest focus test when we have a 7-year-old who came to play the game, and he had to go to do a bit of platforming, and he was really good at it, and then he encountered Monster, and then he was not performing well on the platforming. He was doing it at 30% of what he was able to do before. And then when and he was really stressed, and when he found the rotten fruit and he gave it to Monster, he went like, and it's like, it works. It works. So suddenly I was able to make a 7-year-old kid go through that terrible experience in a safe environment and learn from it. So at that moment I knew the game worked.
Thank you.
First, I want to echo what has already been said and say I think you created an incredibly emotionally powerful game that gives voice to people in our society that often don't have much of a voice, and I think it's a huge success in that regard. I wanted to ask kind of your thoughts about some of the critical reception of the game. I actually got the chance to write about this. I was kind of furious about some of the things that critics said about the game. It seemed like critics were upset that it wasn't difficult enough, that the puzzles weren't hard enough. And I thought that they, in making those kind of comments, a lot of critics missed the point of the game. To me, the game was never about how difficult the puzzles were. It was about, to me, what I saw is that the puzzles were illustrating the struggle that you had in a very powerful way. And I'm just curious to hear your thoughts about difficulty and those sorts of things.
Yeah,
I mean, I'd like to see us get past some of that, and I'm just curious of your thoughts.
The only way you can get a puzzle-based game evaluated by the critics now and get a good score is do what Jonathan Blow did. Make them really hard and making everyone else feel stupid. And I couldn't do that. I didn't want people to feel stupid. I wanted people just to go through the puzzles and feel the story and use each one of the puzzles as a mechanism to help you to cope with the experience. For example, one of the best puzzles is when you see all the houses that you have to build a big snake. That happened just after Monster have attacked you for the first time. So that's how we balance it. And in terms of critical reception, I only evaluated the success of the game based on the amount of mails that we get from people thanking us for doing the game. That's what I care. I care for those people. I don't care for the guy who doesn't get the game.
So, well, I guess to be a broken record, thank you as well. One of the things that really struck me about the game when I played it was that so many of the different moments throughout the game have their own mechanics that are sort of exclusive to those individual sequences. But overall, the experience still feels coherent. What was your process of creating those sort of individual mechanics in a way that wasn't going to make them feel like I was playing 4 different games in rapid succession?
We have a few techniques that it was more or less, it was, okay, if you're a kid and you cannot fly, how would you solve the problem? And if you have to move the environment. So suddenly that was one of the guidelines. So suddenly, if there's a house there, and you needed to do something, how will I get to it? Or if I see a building here and I had to build a stair, how will I transform that into that one? So suddenly everything was about what will a kid do in that moment.
Thank you.
Is this on? Yeah. So again, thank you for a great talk and a wonderful game. I have a question that was similar to his about mechanics. When I think about telling an emotional or personal or very like kind of deep story with a game, I kind of get stuck on how to use gameplay and mechanics to bring that story out, if that makes sense. So I'm wondering if you could comment a little bit further on how you kind of elicited.
Yeah, so that is something that that is something you have to break the rules there, because only we've been taught to mimic mechanics of if you try to do mechanics that never have been done before, people are going to go like, no, that may not work, or no, that may not. No, change it, try it, and then it is you cannot bet yourself in the past 25 years to create emotional mechanics. This is a known territory. So you don't have to be afraid to explore, and it's just a lot of iteration, trying, and see. Some of them work, some of them don't. But it is try the craziest thing you can. Any other questions? Thank you so much for coming.